In today's video, I want to share a story, not about love or loss, but about the quiet, invisible wars we fight inside our hearts when the world grows silent. My name is Elise, and I'm 44 years old. For most of my adult life, I've lived in a quiet house that always feels too big and too small at the same time. Too big when I'm alone, too small when memories decide to visit. I've been a single mother for as long as I can remember, raising my son Lenny, with more love than money, more hope than sleep, and more prayers than plans. He's 22 now. A man by all definitions, but in my mind, I still see the boy who used to run through the kitchen with messy hair and mismatched socks, laughing at jokes I never understood. Being a mother is strange that way. Your heart grows up, but part of it stays frozen in time. Holding the image of your child at the age when you needed each other the most. That night, the house was cold. The kind of cold that seeps through the walls and into your bones. Not just weather cold, but the emotional kind that follows you after a long day of pretending everything's fine. Lenny came home late. His shoulders were slumped, eyes dull, like he'd been carrying something heavy all day that he didn't want to talk about. Rough day? I asked gently, setting a cup of tea on the table. He just nodded, sitting down without a word. That's the thing about adult children. Silence replaces the stories they used to tell. I used to know everything about his world. Now I'm just a visitor in it. I watched him quietly, noticing the faint tremor in his hands. He looked exhausted, mentally, not physically. There's a difference, you know. Physical tiredness can be fixed with sleep. Emotional exhaustion feels endless. You can rest in my room if you want, I said softly. It's warmer there. He hesitated, then smiled weakly. Thanks, Mom. I might do that. When he lay down, I stayed sitting for a while, staring at the flickering light from the heater. I don't know why I couldn't move. Maybe I was afraid of the silence, or what it would say to me if I listened too long. You see, when you've spent years surviving on your own, the quiet becomes both your comfort and your enemy. It listens to every thought you try to bury. I eventually lay down on the edge of the bed. Not next to him but near enough to hear his breathing, slow and steady. It reminded me of when he was a child. I used to watch over him when he was sick, staying awake just to count the rhythm of his breaths. Funny how some instincts never fade, even when your child becomes an adult. Lying there, I thought about the years that brought us here. All the nights I stayed up sewing his clothes. All the times I pretended I wasn't scared when we couldn't pay rent. I thought about the arguments we had when he was a teenager, the slamming doors, the words that hurt more than they should have. Motherhood doesn't come with applause. Most of it happens in the shadows. In kitchens at midnight, in moments of silent panic when you wonder if you're doing any of it right. And yet, even after everything, when he came home tired and broken that night, he still came home. That was enough to make my heart ache with gratitude. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind wandered through years of memories, like flipping through old photographs you can't throw away. I saw myself at 22, his age now. I was lost, scared, and suddenly responsible for a tiny life I didn't know how to protect. People said I was brave, but truthfully, I was just terrified. When you're young and single with a baby, people pity you in public and judge you in private. But I learned to smile through both. I learned to be strong not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. And now, watching Lenny, I realized something painful. I had spent so long being his protector. But now he was grown. He didn't need saving anymore. That realization hit me like a wave. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was emptiness, like the silence after a storm when everything is standing, but nothing feels the same. Lenny stirred beside me, mumbling something in his sleep. I smiled faintly, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. You're okay? I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was saying it to him or to myself. My chest felt tight. I wanted to tell him so many things. How proud I was of him, how sorry I was for the times I'd failed him, how scared I still was of losing the only person who made my world make sense. But I stayed silent. Because mothers don't often say those things. We just live them. And that's when I realized, maybe silence is how love survives when words aren't enough. Morning came slowly, dripping through the curtains in pale streaks of light. The world outside was quiet. No cars, no voices, just the hum of life trying to wake up. Lenny was still asleep. His face, softened by rest, looked so much like his father's that for a moment I forgot to breathe. It had been 22 years since I last saw that man, Lenny's father, walk out of our lives. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence that echoed for years. I used to tell myself I hated him, but deep down, I think I hated myself more, for choosing him, for staying too long, for not seeing the storm before it hit. Raising Lenny alone wasn't easy. There were nights I cried quietly in the kitchen while he slept, afraid to let him see me weak. I worked double shifts, skipped meals so he could eat, smiled through exhaustion so he wouldn't worry. But the hardest part wasn't the hunger or the work. It was pretending I was enough. Pretending I wasn't breaking a little every day. I reached out, gently tucking the blanket around him, just like I used to when he was small. For years, I was his whole world. But now, watching him as an adult, I realized he had become mine. That's the danger of loving someone too completely. When they grow up, you're left wondering who you are without them. Later that morning, after he'd gone out for his part-time job, I found myself cleaning, or at least pretending to. It's something mothers do when emotions become too heavy. We clean, we cook, we rearrange things as if fixing the house can fix the heart. I opened my bedside drawer to dust it and found an old envelope. Yellowed at the edges, with my handwriting on the front. For Lenny someday. I had written it when he was 10, on a night I thought I might not make it. I'd been sick and scared, and writing that letter had been my way of leaving behind all the things I didn't have the courage to say aloud. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. The words were faded, but I remembered every line. If you ever feel lost, remember that you are my reason. Every breath I took, every step I stumbled through, it was for you. Even when I failed, I never stopped trying. Please forgive me if I wasn't enough. You made my life worth living. Reading it again after all these years broke something open inside me. I had spent so long holding my emotions in that I'd forgotten how to let them move through me. Tears came quietly, not loud or dramatic, just soft and tired, like the rain that falls after too many dry days. I folded the letter and placed it on his pillow. I didn't plan to tell him about it. I just wanted him to find it someday, maybe when he needed it most. That evening, I heard the front door open. His footsteps were slow, deliberate. "Hey Mom," he called. "I brought dinner." He held up a takeout bag, smiling. For the first time in months, his smile reached his eyes. We sat at the table, eating quietly. It felt peaceful. After a few bites, he said, "You know, I've been thinking about taking a break from school. Maybe a few months. I just feel burned out." My heart clenched. Every instinct screamed to say no. I wanted to tell him that life doesn't pause, that you have to keep going. But then I saw the weariness in his eyes, and I recognized it. It was the same exhaustion I carried for years. So instead I took a breath and said, "Maybe that's a good idea. Rest isn't failure, Lenny. Sometimes it's survival." He looked up, surprised. "You really think so?" "I know so," I said softly. "I learned that too late in life. You don't have to." Something shifted in his expression. A mix of relief and gratitude. It was the first time he'd looked at me not just as his mother, but as a person. That night, we sat in the living room long after dinner, just talking. It had been years since we'd done that. No TV, no distractions, just two people catching up on the spaces between their lives. He told me about his fears, how he felt lost, unsure of who he wanted to be, scared of disappointing me. "I always thought you had it all figured out," he said. "You never seemed scared." I laughed softly. "Oh, Lenny, I was terrified. Every single day." He blinked, stunned. "You never showed it." "I couldn't," I admitted. "When you're a parent, you wear courage like armor. Even when it's cracked, you keep it on. Because your child needs to believe you're invincible, until they're strong enough to see that you're not." He was quiet for a long time after that. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Mom, I think I finally understand you." And that's when it hit me. All those years of silence, distance, confusion. They hadn't been for nothing. Somewhere in the struggle, we had found understanding. Over the next few days, something changed in our home. It felt lighter, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. We cooked dinner together. We laughed again. It wasn't perfect. It never is, but it was real. One evening, as I was folding laundry, I found my letter back on my pillow. A small note was tucked beneath it, written in Lenny's handwriting. I read it. You were always enough. More than enough. I pressed it to my chest and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I finally stopped trying to fix what didn't need fixing. Love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to stay. A week later, Lenny and I stood outside together, watching the first snow of winter fall across the quiet street. He turned to me and said, "You know, Mom, I think I'm going to be okay." And I smiled. Not because I doubted it, but because for the first time, I truly believed it too. We stood there for a long time, the snow covering the world in silence. But this time the silence didn't feel empty. It felt full of forgiveness, of love, of everything we never said but always meant. As I watched the snow gather on his shoulders, I realized something simple but profound. You can spend your whole life waiting for peace to arrive from somewhere else. A job, a person, a moment. But sometimes, peace isn't something that comes to you. It's something you decide to make inside yourself. That night, I lay down knowing I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman who had survived, who had learned, who had finally remembered how to breathe again.